The Shift with Regina Manyara.
Well, good evening once again. We are indeed live from KEFI's headquarters here in Karen. And tonight on The Shift, we dig into the real issues facing Kenyan farmers. Now, is agriculture still our economic backbone, or is it struggling under the weight of rising costs, shrinking profits, and market access struggles? Now, joining us tonight on The Shift is none other than Agriculture Principal Secretary Dr.Kipronoh Ronoh, as well as Professor Gideon Obare from Tegemeo Institute, who will break down those issues. We're talking about matters of subsidies, market access, and solutions. From the wheat imports to tea exports, a snail infestation, rise to the sugar boom, as well as climate change now that is shaking up the economy and also making farming quite attractive. Are we making farming attractive, especially to the youth? Tonight on The Shift, those are the conversations we're going to be having. Good evening, this is The Shift, and I'm Regina Manyara. Welcome, gentlemen. Let's start it off. Are you farmers? Have you had experience farming? Let's hear from you, PS.
Yes, first of all, thank you, Regina. And I want also to thank all our viewers and also our stakeholders and our farmers, and also welcome you to KEFIS. This is one of our institutions under the Ministry of Agriculture.
Okay.
Yes, you asked a question. Yes, I'm a farmer.
What do you farm? What do you grow?
Okay, I'm a dairy farmer.
Dairy farmer?
Dairy farmer. I've started also coffee farming.
Okay.
So the two are in my line.
So coffee, growing, and livestock keeping.
Livestock.
Prof, you're a farmer. Do you have experience farming?
Thank you very much, Regina, for the invite, and I'm happy to be here. Now, to your question whether I'm a farmer. Let's say generally all Kenyans are farmers in whichever way and form. So I'm not a real farmer, but I do some bit of farming.
Okay.
Yes.
So you have some experience with farming.
I have some experience.
Good. Now, on that note, tonight we were asking you, as our viewers back at home, is the current food price actually affecting your capacity to have a meal on your table? Let's have a look at what Kenyans had to say in regard to that matter. Well, that is the opinion poll there that you're seeing, a majority saying that the high food prices are affecting their capacity to feed themselves and their family. And that is what we have on our platforms. Kenyans are decrying the high cost of food. And if we look at, let's start off with the agricultural performance in the year 2024. We had a 4.8% increase in agricultural produce, but then Kenyans are not feeling the effect on the cost of food. Let's start off with you, Professor Gideon Obare. Why do you think we're not having a correlation with our increased yields and the price?
Good question. Theoretically, we should have a correlation. Why there is some friction or divergence between these two, my bet is there are certain factors that do influence the market price, and market price obviously will have to be determined by the farm gate prices as well. So farm gate prices, if you just look at farm gate prices, that is influenced by the cost of production. Now, if the cost of production is high, then it means also the downstream consumers, that price will have to be reflected at the outlet or retail place. So if production increased, that will mean then that would have depress the price, the market price.
Yes.
So the conditions that do influence what the end price at the retail outlet includes the transaction cost, the transportation cost from the farm to the end user. If those costs are high, then they'll be reflected also at the end users or the retail market.
Thank you,
retail
Prof, because
price.
you have just set the ball rolling, and as far as this conversation is concerned,
Right.
because it's not just about having the product, it's also about the transportation, the cost it takes to actually have it there, the movement of that particular farm produce all the way to the table. We will be unpacking that. Now, P.S., how do you compare, the status of agriculture compare it in the last 2 years and a half? How do you compare the ecosystem, or rather the status of agriculture?
All right, thank you. Maybe to put it very well is, first of all, let us see the plans in place for this government, which has really influenced a number of factors within the agriculture sector. In the plan, it has got 3 tranches. One is the plan is to reduce on importation, increase export, and also increase production.
Yes.
That is the plan. So how do we increase production? This is how this government looked into. One, we say we should not subsidize consumption. We need to subsidize production. So this is the plan. In the production area, we look at all the required inputs which goes into production. We look at the issues to do with the farm itself. We look at the issues to do with the soil. Because if the soil is not healthy, then you are likely to have poor production or no production. And then we look at what are other factors which goes into the cost of production. We look at farm input like fertilizers. Then, by the time this administration came, the cost of fertilizers, you agree with me, was quite high. It was over 7,500 by 50 kilogram bags. So that one was one of the key programs which the government has gone into to reduce the cost of fertilizers. And that one you can feel it, and we reduce it. And after that, we went into analyzing our soil in what is called a soil health program to understand whether the soil we have are really meeting the requirement of each and every crop. So after the analysis, of course, over time, we've been using specific fertilizers like DAP. So we realized that some of the fertilizers we've been using have not been good. So we went to what is called soil-specific fertilizers, blended fertilizers, so that they are able to really treat the soil ecosystem so that we maximize on production. Now, after that, we went into the other part like labor, the cost of labor.
Now, before we get to labor, PS,
Yes.
Yes, when it comes to the cost of production, as Prof has put it, is that it takes care of quite the range. The fertilizer subsidy would say has worked, looking at the prices of wheat as it is, looking at the latest CPI index. But other than fertilizer subsidy, there's the issue of, is it sustainable in the long run, or were we doing it as a stopgap measure?
All right. First of all, it has worked.
Yes.
I want to appreciate the plan has worked. If there's a plan which has worked, it is the better plan in agriculture. Yes, we have looked into this program. Because it has worked, we have come up with a policy to see not only subsidizing fertilizer alone, we are looking at the whole ecosystem of the farm input. And as we talk, there's a policy now to really be taken to the next step to see, apart from subsidizing fertilizers, can we see seeds? You saw recently we had to reduce the cost of seed because there was a little bit of increase, so that we subsidized. We also look at areas like sometime beyond fertilizers, maybe even a farmer may need, if you are a dairy farmer, you need to also the dairy semen, the hybrid, to be subsidized, which you see we have also brought in. So we have our whole policy program now to see how best we can have this particular working solution which this administration has put in place to be sustainable and stay for the rest of the time.
Now, question, do you have timelines? Are we looking at this particular policy to subsidize other aspects like seeds and such as you've mentioned, maybe in the next finance bill 2025, 2026? Is it in the plan? Is it in the offing?
Yes. As we talk even today when we were with the Senate, we discuss about it, that we need to have a whole paradigm shift, a convention in agriculture on which way to go to make sure that we support our farmers. So that one is in place, and we agree that we need to engage all the stakeholders. And I think the first stakeholder engagement has taken place, but it is now going to the next level of leadership so that we can see how best we can support our farmers. Like other economies, most of the economies who have really made farming key and also use farming to transform the economy, they have really subsidized farming. But they have
cost of production.
The cost of production.
Okay. Prof, from where you sit in a policy level, do you think that government will be able to sustain this in the long run in terms of costing and such?
Even the PS has said so, I think. But the strategy as implemented by the government, I think is a good start because it was meant to address a crisis. So in the long run, obviously, as you to answer your question directly, it's not sustainable. But there could be strategies that would be put in place over a period of time. Maybe think about how much the proportion to which we subsidize. Over a period of time, you gradually reduce the subsidy. That is one. Secondly, the government might have to think about who is it that we need to subsidize. Is it global, or there should be targeted subsidy? I think if you go back, there was a model whereby we had e-voucher system.
Yes.
And then there was this transition now to subsidy in general. So we might have to relook which model best fits our circumstances, considering that it is not sustainable in the long run.
Now, PS, do we know our farmers? I'm talking about there's been planned to have farmers get registered. Do we know who is a farmer and to which capacity?
Yes, maybe to answer what Professor said, first of all, in terms of sustainability, yes, we have different categories of farmers. We have what we call the farmers which are at the low of the pyramid. We are talking about 2 million farmers, which we are giving them subsidy program, which is still there, whereby we have a program whereby they pay a little bit of, they contribute some money, and the government contributes some money, and these farmers are in a database. But before I go into detail, yes, what you ask is, do you know our farmers?
Yes, do we know our farmers?
Let me tell you, I think this is the only country in Africa who knows their farmers up to their geographical location and what they do. We went into a very vigorous program, this administration, to try and register our farmers. And we use the counties and our youth and also the police administration, the Ngao, to really go deep and identify our farmers. And as we talk now, we have a very comprehensive farmer database and a program called KIAMIS, whereby we have 6.5 million farmers which are now registered. And we are able to tell where they are, what they do, and the type of support they require based on their income level. So this is the model. It is good to talk about this model. How do we sustain this model? We are saying we are importing this type of food, and this is the taxation we are getting as government. Can we use the same money we get from imports, we are taxing importers, to support our agricultural production, so that as we increase on production, the importation also come down? So if the importation is high, it means there's a lot of taxes, it means we have a lot of money to support our farmers from the importation. So we'll be trying to suppress importation to support the farming. So each of the value chain, we have a trench in terms of the funding which is from imports, so that we can use to support the local farmers who are producing this particular value chain.
Now, as you're talking about production and supporting farmers, there's a question of the inter-county levies that are applied, you know, in various counties when these products are moving from one county to another. How are we ensuring that, you know, we address this issue, because it's also driving the cost of production? Where does your department come into that? As we are pondering on that particular response to that, we take our first break here on the shift. Just to remind you, the big question tonight is, as Kenya's quest for food security and food sovereignty, is farming still profitable and attractive to you? Get on X at KBC Channel 1. My handle is at Manyara. We'll be back. Welcome back. This is A Shift, and we're coming to you live from KEFIS headquarters here in Nairobi, Karen. And the conversation is revolving around agriculture. Is Kenya going back to the soil, looking at the achievements that have been made both on paper and in action 2 years and a half since the changeover in government? My guest, none other than Principal Secretary Agriculture, as well as Professor Gideon Obare of Tegemeo Institute. Gentlemen, we're still here. So the question of the levies just affecting the cost of production, levies that are charged for inter-county transportation of this particular farm produce. What is your department doing about this? Or your ministry, actually?
Right. One is that we must appreciate that agriculture is devolved. So we have our own county government handling the big part in terms of production at the county level and other requirements on markets. They do that. Yes, what we are saying is what we have experienced, because when you talk about every county based on the value chain, you realize that as a county tries to survive or to collect taxes, the nearest tax which the counties normally attack is the agricultural sector. You find that the markets within the counties and the way the food are being transported from one county to another has faced challenges. And I think you must have seen even we had a case of macadamia, and in the case of, we are calling what, which were going to Mombasa. Yes. And there was a challenge. They stopped at some stage. We also have cases of some fertilizers. The lorries are overcharged by the counties. But this is what we have done. We have set up, we have what is called the county forums now, whereby within the ministry, the forum for the agriculture, we have the governors who are key. They come from the key production areas to really try and harmonize, because support negotiation and discussion and appreciating what the role the agriculture sector plays. Mm-hmm. So we have identified each of the levies which are really affecting farming, and the COG is now looking at how best, as we also try on our side, because even the national government, we have also challenges. Mm-hmm. There are quite some taxes which are affecting the cost of production and also the agriculture sector, which we have looked into and see which one can we trade in, or what we call the opportunity cost. Instead of really having this tax, isn't it better, instead of increasing the cost of packaging, can we reduce it and we get more people packaging, and then we create labor, and therefore we also improve on the economy instead of increasing a small tax. So what we have done is that this in the county forum has really assisted us, which we every other year, every quarter we have it to discuss about that. It has not really solved the problem, because it keeps on coming up and down based on specific counties. They vary. Okay. But we believe that with the policy guide now, which we are sitting together with the Senate, we'll be able to address those issues.
We'll put a pin on it and we'll be having that conversation. Now, let's look at the issue of market access. It's one of the challenges that is facing our farmers, Professor. Is it an issue of lack of willingness, or is it consumer purchase power, or even just ability to access even markets outside, our own jurisdiction, that is Kenya and such? Where is the challenge, Prof?
I think I mentioned in my opening statement the marketing costs are quite high. And what are these factors that then contribute to the marketing cost? One of those is what you've mentioned, these levies, etc., which makes then the products relatively expensive. So then uncompetitive if you want to access a market. So if there is what needs to be done from where I sit is to ensure that the markets are well developed. Well developed markets are those that if you have a product and there at point A and there is a demand for that product at point B, then that information is transmitted and the producer knows that there is demand, there is a market for my product, and the price for that, if I sell it to that market, would be so much, obviously subtracting the transport cost, the marketing cost, and then they'll be able to see the margins. So if markets are well developed, then the transmission of products would be frictionless. The differentials in terms of prices at the out markets will kind of like reflect only the transportation costs plus some margins. Now, what happens because the markets are not well developed? There are interventions in between the market channels, including brokers, that then obviously exploit this information that is not available to either the supplier, but the buyer knows, and that then makes the products and produce relatively expensive. So from the policy perspective, I think there is need to invest in market development.
Market development.
Right.
Okay. Do you think Kenya farmer, a majority of them, 80% are smallholder farmers, that they have the requisite information about, as you said, the laws of supply and demand and where the markets are? Do you think that they have that information?
Well, they might have, maybe partially, partially because, you see, the smallholder farmers have competing priorities and interests. All right. First of all, they have to meet their basic needs, and what then is a surplus is what they sell.
Yes.
And what they sell is definitely intended to meet some needs as well. Now, the issue is how do we make these farmers commercial oriented?
On that point,
right.
Before you answer that,
right,
I want to bring in the PS here into this conversation. Government promised farmers more money in their pocket. And one of the issues that was raised is the heavy presence of middlemen across the value chains. 2.5 years, what has been done to eradicate the middlemen in this particular value chain? There was talk of having the warehouse receipt system. What's the status report?
All right. Thank you. First of all, let me appreciate what the professor said in terms of our market structures. Many times, the farmers or the producers suffer because there's lack of information on where the markets are. And when you look at the plan we put under this government, we look at areas where we need to put markets. And we came up with aggregation centers, what we call the county aggregation, integrated aggregation centers, where we are building those centers so that we have in every county at least a center where the producers can take their produce and then their value added and then a better market is sought out. So with those, we already have around 13 in number, which are almost ready in terms of commissioning, so that the producers will have in those counties a place where they can take their produce and you may not eradicate the middleman, but you may only need to say you manage or you reduce the intervention of the middleman.
Okay.
But we believe that with these application centers which we are putting in place in every county, it will be able to keep what is called transparency and do value addition to the product and provide a better market for the farmers or for producers. That is one of the programs we are putting in place. The other one, which is very important, is we are trying to put our farmers into cooperatives, and we are trying also to make sure that these cooperatives are well governed. Because the problem with some of the cooperatives, the covenant structures are not working. And therefore, in terms of trust from the farmers, they have lacked trust because they also became another middle. There is always a middleman, not a middle lady. But there is somebody in the middle.
It's only someone in the middle.
Someone in the middle.
Okay, all right.
So we believe that when we put farmers into cooperatives and we provide proper governance in this cooperative, then we will be able to reach farmers and give the required ingredients in terms of the market, in terms of value addition, in terms of farm input and financing and other related things like mechanization.
Okay.
We believe that will work, that could be the best. If we have we are now identifying a cooperative in every ward, so that we have what is called a ward cooperative where farmers can go, and with the application centers where there will be value addition for export market or for picker market, we believe the farmers will have a lot of benefit and there will be value for their produce.
Now, Prof, before we sought clarity on the presence of middlemen, you were talking about a policy when it comes to creation of market linkages. Maybe you can just put that into perspective before now we hear from the farmer who is watching us, what they think about their farming and what are the main pain points.
Yes, I mean, policy is meant to create an environment where, business thrives. And in order for business to thrive, that business has got to be attractive. And attractive, what is the indicator of attractiveness? You have to get returns. You invest a certain amount, and what you get in return should be over and above what you've invested.
Exactly. ROIs, return on investment. Currently, in your opinion, are farmers getting a return on investment? In your opinion?
It all depends on what kind of value chain we are talking about.
Thank you. We'll pick it up because right now we want to know from you tonight, what do you think about farming? And this is what farmers on a cross-check across the country had to say in regard to farming. Remember, tonight we're looking at the progress that has been made 2.5 years in, with a promise for food security, food sovereignty, and better earnings to farmers across the country. So here's Khalid. He did a spot check to just have the views collected from Kenyans across the country on one or two challenges that they may be facing in their venture. Here you go.
Data from the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics shows overall increase in inflation to 3.5% for the past 5 consecutive months, largely driven by high cost of food prices and transportation. So what's driving the high prices of food commodities?
The challenges that we are facing these days is about the cost of living. It is very difficult to have food on the table since everything has gone high.
Changamoto iko mingi sana saa hii kwa chakula yenye tunapanda, kwa sababu hii wakati ya kiangazi hii inatuduru sana. Lazima unatia bidii ndio upate kitu yenye unaweza weka kitu hata kwa mesa.
We are living in one of the times that the cost is highest, especially for the vulnerable people. The people should look out for each other, and at least we should at least try to save. I think better days are coming.
The agriculture department should come around and gather people, talk to them, advise them how we can handle this farming, like growing vegetables, groundnuts, and many other things. But the government don't come around, actually. They don't come around and see how we do these things.
Mwanzo ya kilimo, tumeanza kilimo. Hatujawahi kuwa na hii shida. Ndio tunashangaa hii imekuja kivipi? Sababu ngano iko. Na sisi tukiwa wakulima tunasema kama ngano haikuweko singekuwa afadhali. Lakini ngano iko na hakuna soko.
There you have it. Those are the views that Kenyans have in regard to their farming experience there. Some of the pain points there include poor earnings, lack of market, as well as costly farm inputs. Gentlemen, that's what Kenyans have to say to that, and we had already mentioned it, that this is a great pain point for them. Do you have something to add?
All right, let me appreciate what the farmers have said, because those are areas we are on focus, because it is true. But it depends on the value chain we are addressing. And I think we have gone one by one. When you look at the poor earnings, if you go, for example, to sugarcane sector, we went into what is called a pricing committee to try and analyze how much is the cost of production of 1 ton of sugar. And while we were analyzing, we realized that to produce 1 ton of sugar, especially with the current input of fertilizer, it has drastically gone down to around 4,500. And we went ahead and sat with the farmers, and we said then we need to increase the farmers' income by ton. And when you saw last week, we had to change from the 5,000 per ton, and now we added 300, and now they are by ton. So we are constantly monitoring. When you go to coffee, for example, with the reforms we have put in place, initially they were adding less than 60 shillings per kilo. Now we are on around 100, 107, 130. Just because, of course, the middle person, which is a man or a lady, could be still there.
The middleman. I didn't want you to get to coffee first before I ask this question pertaining sugar, as you mentioned, and to just look at the current crisis that was averted. I don't know if it's averted, but we're still keeping tabs on it, and that is a wheat issue. Now, with this particular directive that government has taken to ensure that the 321,000 bags that were held by local farmers, metric tons that is, are going to be bought off by government, so to speak. Are you looking at long term having a commission, is in a pricing committee, as a similar one that you have with sugar?
Yes, thank you. You know, when you look at the wheat issue,
yes,
it is a paradox, because when you look at the production, vis-a-vis the demand by year, every year we require around 24 million bags of 90 or 50 kilograms of wheat every year.
Yes, we can only sustain 10% of our demand.
Not even 10. It is at less than 8%. The production this year went up from 6% to 8%. So we have a close to around 1.7 million bags of wheat which we produced this year. Out of that, the millers have been able to mop 1.4 million bags. So the remaining 300,000 bags, 321,000 bags, which they are still increasing because we are not harvested in Timau area and part of Narok. There are still some wheat, and also Nakuru. Now, where is the issue here? We call the farmers representative, we call the millers, under the CS Ministry of Agriculture to discuss about it. When we discuss it, we realize that the millers are saying they want to buy the wheat because we stopped their importation. Even after now, we stopped the importation, clearing their cargoes from the sea until they buy their quota. Then when we told the millers to buy this wheat, the farmer said we have the wheat. But when we went down to the ground, the millers are not able to get the wheat from the farmers. Until today, we realize that the wheat are with the aggregators. So the aggregators, the farmers gave their wheat to the aggregators. The aggregators are asking a particular price, which because of the handling. So in between, the miller is looking for the wheat. The farmer cannot really, has already given out the wheat. So with that one, as government, when we formed a small committee to look at into how best we can do it. And we realized that because we already have big warehouses under National Cereals and Produce Board, we directed that for transparency and feasibility, can we have all the wheat be taken to National Cereals and Produce Board under a warehouse receipt system, which we mentioned, which we have already, we are in the implementation. We have identified the facilities which meet the standards so that they can take the farmers can be taking their produce. Okay. So when we told them to take their...
Just hold, because when you say the aggregators are the ones who are now in custody of the wheat per se, as you said, it's a paradox. The cost has been the issue, and the public outcry, especially from farmers, is that what the millers are asking for is too little. Government has said 5,300 for a 90 kg bag for grade 1. Grade 2 is 5,200, but millers are asking for 3,800 for grade 1. So when you look at the scheme of things in terms of cost, they're running at loss. So what are you doing about these aggregators? Is there something we can do? Address the aggregators. We're calling them the ones in the middle. Maybe from a policy point of view, because so that we do not have a recurrence of this.
Yeah, the wheat sector is a little bit interesting, or generally the cereals. I think PS, you can agree with me here. First of all, the policy intervention. Yes. I think the government has tried to restrict imports by imposing some import duty, I think about 5%, and then to discourage export. It has also imposed an export tariff or something, 0 point something. All right, now you need to, and then on the production side, particularly with regard to the wheat farmers,
yes,
I think there is a tax on machinery and implements.
And there's also the cost of chemicals to get rid of fungi.
Correct. Yes. So, you know, when you combine all that, then obviously the idea that maybe farmers are just getting across that it is expensive.
Yes.
You know, you can be able to infer from all those factors. And PS, I think maybe you can be able to confirm this. I think over a period of time, the wheat production levels have been going down, right, over a period of time. And possibly that might be a concern, because then even if now we impose an import duty, the imported wheat might be even cheaper even with the import duty, then disadvantaging local production.
Okay.
All right. Again, the other thing that we might have to think about, he mentioned it. I mean, we can't just like talk about inputs, fertilizer, and so on without looking at the soil health. If the soil is poor, it's unhealthy, you can put all the inputs that you want, but you won't get
the yields that
yes.
Okay. Now, back to the value chain of coffee you had mentioned. I had to bring that up. Maybe that is a direction that government is taking when it comes to wheat. We'll be keeping tabs on that. Now, we sent our coffee. We are back in the Chinese market. what volumes are we looking at? And how is also the US market doing now with this Starbucks and such? I shouldn't have mentioned that, but we are in China. What is the status report there? What has been the reception? We're back.
All right, before that,
Yeah.
I knew you didn't want me to mention a lot about wheat, but it's a very interesting thing. Let me just add something that, yes, the cost of wheat, when you look at the local wheat, which is being produced in Kenya, yes, it is a little bit high. Of course, there are so many dynamics because of our development. There's issues to do with a lot of mechanization. You know, wheat is better produced in large scale, and we have some challenges on issues to do with farming.
Cost of chemicals.
The cost of chemical. But let us look at farms. In fact, you know, people have sort of run away from leasing farms in some of the big areas we land like Narok, and they are changing their models, and now the farmers or the people who have been leasing land from that place have sort of not so much interested, and that has put the cost of the production of wheat to go a little bit lower. But it is important that the wheat we are producing in Kenya are of higher quality than the wheat being imported. And that's why whenever they import, they come and plant to get the best quality. So, yes, we are looking at areas of getting, even when we are importing, we get quality wheat. So that we see this quality wheat we are getting, which there are programs now we are putting in place. What is the cost of the quality wheat which is meeting our quality wheat in Kenya? So that we don't just say in a blanket that when you import, it is lower than the cost of, apart from the cost of production which we have. So those are the things, but we want to promote the wheat production in this country, and we are looking at issues to do with land, and also promoting all issues of mechanization and subsidy.
Are you looking at a situation where we're going to be having a pricing committee?
Yes, already we have. You know, what we have done in all these specific value chain which are key, we have put up a sector committee made up of the farmers representative and the buyers, so that in between, what we call the person in between, I think as government we sort it through cooperatives, so that each of these value chain or the farmers belong to cooperatives, and we believe that cooperatives are better placed to negotiate for the farmers than an individual who can also somehow frustrate the farmers. Then when we come to coffee, I know you are talking about coffee, which...
yes, with the direct payment system, actually. We are in China. I just wanted to know how we are doing now that we're back in China as a market. Just how are we doing?
We are doing very well. In fact, in coffee, when we introduced this commodity exchange, which is brought a lot of transparency and areas to do it payment, which you pay within 5 days, then... the coffee sector with the reforms has really stepped up. There was only low production. You know, what happened with this market is because of how much do you produce. Within the last 1 year, we had a challenge in coffee production, because most of the coffee areas, like the central part of the country, they had shifted to housing. So the coffee farms reduced drastically, and then the coffee areas, which is in the Rift Valley, they have not been in that production in high volume. So there was low production this year, a little bit around 5% lower, but we intend to push it up, because we have given a lot of seedlings to the other producing counties so that we can buy. The other thing is...
Prof, I'm seeing you wanting to react to that change of, areas that were predominantly focusing on coffee production now shifting to other, yes, they're shifting.
They're shifting.
Yes, they're shifting to other ventures like real estate.
Real estate.
Is that a signal to, is it a point of concern from where we are?
It should be. It should be. It should be. One, because... let me put it this way, so that maybe even the Kenyans understand. I think this is something that is global. If agriculture fails, then everything else fails. All right? That is a statement that was brought forth by an Indian who was the father of the Green Revolution in India. And so, obviously, that statement also should apply here as it applies globally. So, going back to what you said, I mean, seriously, because the suitable, arable land area is decreasing. It's decreasing because
land fragmentation.
Yes, because one needs to think about the opportunity cost. Those ones who own the land, one will have to ask, okay, what is more profitable? Is it to put the land into agriculture or real estate? If real estate is more profitable, then obviously I can convert that productive land area into real estate. But there might be need again from the government and PS to see how best, what kind of intervention measures need to be put in place so that at least the suitable agricultural land should not continue shrinking, but at the same time try to explore mechanisms and technologies that can then enable those areas that are, in quote unquote, not suitable for agricultural farming, because essentially Kenyan agriculture is rain-fed. Can we try to think of innovations and technologies whereby then we can exploit those other areas?
Now that we are shifting away from rain-fed agriculture.
I'm sorry about that.
Yeah. No. I like it because we were going there. Where is the new frontier when it comes to actually agriculture? Is there room to actually practice agriculture among the ourselves? Prof?
Very much so, yes. Very much so. I mean, look, what does it require? I think even PS will agree with me. It's the requisite technology. First of all, the water resource, all right? And now, if we say we have to abandon rain-fed agriculture, then we have to have some way of introducing the rain or water into that area, all right? And some of those areas are relatively high. I mean, they are suitable for agriculture, actually irrigated kind of like agriculture. So what does it require? Appropriate technology and innovations that will then induce the expansion of agricultural land into those areas that are yet to be exploited.
All right. So there's potential for that. Looking at the weather report, it indicates that we might actually be having rains in parts of Turkana. So that is something that we will want to hear what your plan is for areas that do not receive this high amount of rainfall in terms of ensuring that these people also get into agriculture. As you said, agriculture may be waning in terms of arable land due to land fragmentation, but also the demographic. It appears that agriculture is practiced by the old generation. Should that be a point of concern, especially in light of climate change? And what do you propose?
Very much so. I think even the government is generally concerned. I think you read policy documents, you see the statistics indicate that agriculture has now been left to the aged, which is.
Or did you say aged?
I mean to the old people.
It's all right.
Right?
The average age.
Yes. Right. So I think we shouldn't lose hope. Why? Because with the development of the value chains, all right, the youth may not be able to actively participate in the primary production itself, all right, but along the chains, they can participate transportation, providing transport services, and even other services like, if you talk of machinery and so on, repair, etc., etc. I mean, setting up places where farmers can just like take their implements for repair. So I think that is appropriate kind of like areas where the youth might be involved in, although I must confess, I think from the report, the database that was produced, there was an indicator, at least a statistic, that showed that about 28% of the farmers that were collected, the data that was collected, were Gen Zs.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So that, for me, was a positive indication.
Positive indicator.
Yeah, and I hope it holds true.
Let's find out from the man of the moment. P.S., do you have a direct program to make agriculture more attractive to this young generation?
Yes, thank you. Maybe before that, you have asked a lot of questions in my space,
Yes,
which I
please.
think the professor has tried to prosecute. But let us go back to one of the main points you talk about. The agricultural land is reducing,
Yes.
especially in the areas where people have shifted into real commercial housing,
Yes.
for example. It's true. When you look at the so-called rain-fed areas for agriculture in terms of counties, there are the 14 counties which we have over-tilled, overused over time, because first of all, yes, it was good to use them because very easy, you don't need to struggle a lot, but it was also the way agriculture was brought into the country, whereby it was predominantly in areas of, you will hear about the white settlers.
Highlands.
They were just like that. And now that is why most of those places, counties, are well developed, and their culture and their population adopted a specific kind of value chain based on what we were trained during that time of the colonial. That in mind, the current program the government has put in place in the affordable housing is to address partially that issue of overuse, the land use, whereby there's a lot of subdivision because each one want to put a house at the corner. But with this program of affordable housing, we believe partially it will be addressed. But let me go to the main issue of why counties have the other many counties and is fertile, very for one resource, which is water. And when you look at the discussion within this administration, there is a big box on the 100 dams which this administration is putting in place to make sure that we get water for irrigation. The problem we have in Kenya may not be lack of water, but it's water management.
Yes.
Because you get in those particular arid land, a lot of water running during rainy season, destroying crops and some animals. Within 1 month or two, is a drought destroying also the same remaining. So it is a paradox. So with this arrangement of this government whereby we are putting up water infrastructure, especially in those areas, we believe that we'll be able to sort of come up with better agricultural transformation program for the arid areas. It has looked at all those factors and see which way to go so that we can shift those areas. But remember, there is also a culture shock because, as I said, the areas of the dry areas is pastoralist. It's a farming. It's not really the crops. So there is also need to really introduce some element of awareness, capacity building and support. And of important is that we are also looking at a fodder crop as a value chain. Because over time, because fodder crop is meant for feeding animals, livestock, we have never given an attention to be a commercial crop which we can grow as a value chain so that we can now give attention to it and say we are going to use to feed animals. Therefore, we can have possible as we shift some of the areas like Garissa, some of the areas of Wachia, where they have grown rice and some maize, in fact, their production is wonderful. You can never imagine. But the last one, you talk about age. It is important.
Agriculture for the youth.
Yeah, agriculture for the youth.
It's attractive.
We need to make agriculture
and not making money. Yet it is feeding us.
Yeah.
A program that is tailor-made for the youth.
Yeah.
Is there one in the offing, or is one working?
Yes. Yes. First of all, let me appreciate that space. First of all, the average age of our farmers is 60 years. And not only in Kenya alone, in Africa, and mostly in the world. And everybody's worried. What is cooking, what is happening. Now, in Kenya, it is at the center. It is true. The people who own land are not youth also. And when you are also looking for collateral to finance youth, sometimes we used to say we need land so that you can give you funding. But if you don't have land, the land is with your parents or your father, then you don't qualify as a youth to get a loan for farming. Now, what is happening here is we need to make farming attractive to the youth. And we need to look at all the value chain which we have now put in place, because it is not the digging alone which is farming. There is a whole marketing which you can use technology to sell. That is attractive to the youth. You can have a platform to sell, application to really bring together the produce. So we have looked at each of the value chain, and our program, you are calling it, I think you have seen, Youth in Agriculture.
Youth in Agriculture.
Yes, you must have. We have launched it and it is up and running.
I hope it gets to that particular point. Before you speak further, I'd want you to answer a question from a farmer here who is doing rice, and they're dealing with the snail menace. What are you doing about it? There's also another one who is asking, I do not have a dollar account. I'm in coffee, and the DSS system is a challenge. Then we can see where we go as we work to one.
Yes, I know about not only the snails in rice in Mwea, we also have the rats in Mwea in large numbers, and they are big in numbers. So we have looked at the problem, the infestation of snails and rats in Mwea. And we try at first to sort of attack and putting up the necessary traps, but we realize it may not work. We try to come up with also issues to do with chemicals. It can also be harmful at some stage. And within the government, we have tried to come up with a more comprehensive program, whereby instead of really destroying this or having one-stop measure, we are looking at a whole facility whereby all these particular pests can also be utilized for feeding some animals. Especially, we have realized they can be used for chicken feed. So we are looking for an investor to look for a sustainable model as we really address the short-term issues. We have tried to come with chemicals, but it may not last. The rats are bigger than the cats. You cannot come with a cat. So those are the things. But let me tell you.
That is in long term. What do I tell Wanjira as we come to a close, the one who is still struggling to grow this rice?
Within our ministry, with the county government of Kirinyaga, we have come up with a program to go and try and address those issues using the necessary chemicals to deter those particular pests.
Okay. And of the account, the DSS director?
The DSS account, I think this one now, because it is not under my ministry, our ministry.
Very well said. We have been discussing agriculture. I'd want to know, Prof, do you think Kenya is ready for the next planting season as we bring this to a close?
It has to be.
Oh,
it has to be. I mean, look, we said if we aren't ready, if Kenya will not be ready for the next planting season, then what? Obviously, we'll be subjecting that crisis, which I think everybody is trying to avoid, food insecurity. All right. So I think, Kenya should be ready for planting in the next season. The conditions need to improve. The challenges need to be addressed. Some of those challenges, obviously, that we have talked about. The market needs to be looked at, because obviously if you tell the farmer to plant, then what? There has to be some return after planting. So yes, Kenya, I think, is ready for planting.
And on that note, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. Well, we have been looking at 2.5 years in of the Kenya Kwanza government, and the question is, has government, or rather has Kenya fully embraced agriculture as we talk about matters of food security? So tonight the question has been, we are focusing on the soil. Is it bearing fruit? Some of the issues that have been highlighted is, first and foremost, the cost of production. Policies are in place, and also others are coming up from our panel this evening. And also we're going to be looking at market linkages. Policies have been put in place. We'll continue keeping tabs on this. Tonight, the shift has been here in Karen at the KBC headquarters, and we hand you over back to Broadcasting House. You've been watching The Shift. I'm Regina Manyara.